riding in on his horse, and he didn't say, "Hey, I'll put you up in an apartment."
What was that movie, or what was that song? Fancy.
Fancy, don't let me down.
No. Dolly Parton, right? Or
No,
Reba?
It was Reba.
Okay. Damn it, I had it right the first time. I'm so gonna edit that so it sounds like I had it right the first time.
Nope, it's on the video.
I know, right?
I know, I keep making stupid moves and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm being recorded.
No, you're
Like,
being.
Because you guys are face down. You have no idea the stupid shit I do. Yeah.
I enjoy the occasional like booty tooch that you do.
What did she do?
She's just like she tries to get leverage and then she just like tucks her bum up
Oh, I love
like a little duck.
So, at this point, oh my god, this is totally like what I did to that former boyfriend. Like, giving him a massage, it was so much work. It was so much work just to get some dick. Like, I went through all this, and now I still gotta give a massage to get some dick. Okay, so
Emily and I know about trying to get dick because John's still out to sea and Emily's has been gone for 10 months now.
9. That is
9 months.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks, Donald Trump. We really love immigration.
But you know what's funny for me? It hasn't really been about the dick. It's just a lot of the guys I've been with have been emotionally unavailable. And I think a lot of women are... The way you feel close is through sex, sometimes. Like, that's the closest, you know? But that also is when you're probably with the wrong guy, you know? So, long story short is, there was this transgender, and her name was Marilyn, of course. Everyone, yeah, she wanted to be Marilyn Monroe, except she was like... Yeah, right. No, she kind of was rough. I mean, she was like 40-something, and she was like 6'4". And like, when she went to get her nails done, they charged her double because her hands were so big.
Oh.
No, I'm just joking. But we were going to move. She was going to move to San Francisco. So she was like, let's move to San Francisco. And I said, okay, that's California. That's not Hollywood, but that's closer than Florida. So long story short is she ended up flaking out on me, and I'd given up my apartment, I'd given up everything, you know, because I stayed with her for a month because we were prepping to move. So at this point, I'm like, what am I going to do? I'd given up my job, so I had to call my dad. And I called my dad, and I'm like, look, you know, I don't know what to do. He's like, you can come home. So I came home, and my dad, you know, when my dad saw me, he's like, wow, you're really pretty. I'm like, thank you. So I went back to performing in the bars to save money in Iowa, and then I needed a job. So I had a bunch of gay friends, but of course there's still a lot of transphobia. This guy was like, oh, I can give you a job at the Holiday Inn, not the Sahara. But he said, you can't work the front counter because we can't have you with the customers. Yeah, yucky, right? Real shitty. That made me feel good, but anyways, he gave me a job, and I was a maid. And so I would come in, and I like to, in my head, I thought, I'm Cinderfella. You know, that's what I dream. And I'll tell you, the hardest job I've ever had was being a maid. It is such hard work. People are pigs, but I did it. I saved money, and then I met another transgender girl, and she wanted to move to California. So for a year, I worked really hard, and I had an '89 Oldsmobile, a really old piece of shit car. So I drove my car, she drove hers, and we moved. She knew someone in San Francisco, so once again, I was like, well, it's not Hollywood, but, you know, it's closer. So I drove, and I had my car was so old, it only had like a cassette player, you know.
My first car was an '89 T-Bird. Yeah.
Right. So I listened to Madonna's Causing a Commotion the whole way. Yeah, thinking I was, going to cause a commotion and take over the city. I come in, and we were supposed to stay with her friend. And once we got in town, her friend is like, oh, no, you guys can't stay here. So we're like, what are we going to do? So there was a genetic woman who was there, and she's like, well, you can stay with me. And, so we thought, okay, well, we'll sleep on her living room floor. Come to find out later, she's a meth head. And a prostitute, and I was like, fuck. So
welcome to California.
Welcome to California, baby. And so after that, it was funny because there was this transgender bar in the Tenderloin, which is in San Francisco, which is kind of like a very seedy neighborhood called
the Tenderloin.
The Tenderloin, and it's called the Tenderloin because they usually have a bunch of drug addicts and prostitutes just walking the streets. And keep in mind, I'm from Iowa, so I had not been around that. I was so naive. You know, I was just like, hi, good morning. Are you working out today? It's like, honey, I'm trying to get some money, you know.
See, that's funny though, because like when people are like, I'm from Iowa, I feel like when people think that we grow up in California, like our first grade, we have lessons on meth heads and
We do, I
do. Because I had no idea either.
Oh.
And then like, it's funny because people are like, I'm from Iowa. I'm like, I'm from California, and I still had no idea the person that was super skinny was because she was doing crystal meth,
Yeah.
and I wanted to know her diet. Like,
Yeah, oh yeah. And so at this point, I, you know, go to this transgender bar, and I've always been a pretty good performer. I make my own costumes and...
Which are beautiful.
They're gorgeous.
So, but that's where I would put my pain, because let's keep it real, life can be mean and evil, so I would make beautiful things because they would make me happy.
I love that sentence. That's where I put
Yeah.
my pain. It's a good sentence.
Completely. So at this point, I won a talent night at the bar. You know, like I performed, I won. And then the bartender was like, what's your name? I'm like, I'm Cassandra. I said, I really need a job. You know, like I didn't hide. I was like, I need a job. And she's like, well, have you ever bartended before? I said, no, but I would, you know, gladly learn. It's like, okay, we have a shift that starts at 6 a.m. in the morning to 12. I'm like, okay, I'll take it. And let me tell you, you want to know who comes into a bar at 6 a.m. on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday?
Sad people.
Sad. I mean, I've seen it all. I mean, I've seen, you know, drug addicts, prostitutes, I mean, just everything. I've seen people having sex in the restroom. I mean, but you know what? Which is so crazy, and I don't even understand why. Through it all, I still had this ability to be very childlike. You know, I didn't become bitter. You know, I was always still like kind of naive, and I realized that that has been my survival technique. You know, and not to take it all in. You know, like I didn't really become friends with the girls. I kept a distance. I would be by myself a lot because I knew that I didn't want to get involved in that world. But I remember I wouldn't date anybody. You know, the guys would ask, would you like to go on it? No. But then this one guy, he came in and he had tattoos. He's rough around the edges. Didn't even like him. That's how it always starts out.
Always.
Just thought like, ugh, he's a jerk. He looks like a player. And the bar manager's like, why don't you go with him to pick up my dinner? You know, because he was going to pick it up for her. So I went with him, and honestly, I wasn't attracted to him, but I was kind of promiscuous. So, you know, we ended up doing whatever. And I was just like, ugh, whatever, I'm done. But he did something nice for me. I didn't have a bed, and he gave me his bed. He was moving. And that just, I was done. I thought, because nobody was ever nice to me. So, just for someone to even be somewhat nice, and I just kind of fell right there. Come to find out he was a pimp. Oh my God. And a drug addict, and a liar, and a cheat. So, I proceeded to have 2 years.
Another Reba McEntire song.
2 years of hell with that situation. You know, because he was my first person that I actually ever really said I love you to.
Oh.
And so I didn't want to give up on him, you know, but he just destroyed me. I allowed him to. You know, I just didn't have the coping skills. Long story short was this couple came in, and it was like this, they were in their 40s and 50s, you know, the woman, and they came in, I was bartending, and I was dressed as Goldilocks. You know, I had a big, I always would dress up. I've always dressed up and crazy. I love the fantasy of it all. And they came in and we just hit it off. And I found out that they were going through, they'd been married for 20-odd some years, and they were, you know, probably going to get a divorce, and they were trying to reconnect. So they thought, oh, let's reconnect, let's go to a transgender bar. They just walked in and thought, you know, I thought they were swingers.
I was going to ask.
That's what I thought. But I found out later that they just kind of like fell in love with me. You know, I became a really good performer, and I was performing at different places in the city. I worked 3 jobs. I got another job at Asia SF, which was like a transgender show bar, and then I would work every Sunday at Este Noches. So I was supporting myself, and I was doing it honestly. You know, I wasn't selling my body. I you know, didn't have a sugar daddy or anything like that. I was And, honestly, it was probably one of the happiest times in my life.
Right, because it's fun when you don't have to depend on anyone.
Fun, but then there came a time that I was, like, lonely, because it was work. And I was, like 27, 28, and I was like, you almost get to a point you're like, I want to be in love. Like you're ready for it. And unfortunately, when you're ready for it, the first person who might not be the best person walks in, and I was like sold. And that was Patrizio, Italian. So,
we gotta get you away from the Italians.
oh no, I'm done.
Okay.
I'm done with the Italians. The reason I was always drawn to Italian, because the men can be very passionate, and very artistic. And but anyways, long story short, so I became friends with them, and I got on CSI, because I was still, working on, acting and trying to get out there. And I got a part on CSI as a showgirl, like a bitchy showgirl. I had 7 lines. It was the 100th episode, and at the time, Kate Walsh, who went on to do Private Practice, that she was just breaking out.
Okay.
And she was like, had a main part in the show, and Marge Helgenberger, and I filmed it, and I thought,
we're flipping you over.
yeah. Yay. Oh my god, I feel like I'm gonna fall asleep.
And scoot down that way.
Down? Like there?
A little bit more. That way I can get your shoulders. Perfect. Alright.
That is like so opening me up.
Oh wait, you might want to go down a little more. I'm a liar.
Okay.
I'm a liar. Okay.
Okay.
Perfect. Okay.
Okay.
Sorry.
Oh my god, this like kind of puts you to sleep.
See, I know what I'm doing.
You're great. Oh my god.
Okay, so CSI.
Okay.
Kate
So
Walsh.
I got on CSI, and this was I think 2007. So at this point I thought, wow, I have made it big, because it was the ¡1 show.
Right.
And I was like, I have 7 lines, I got a SAG card. I was like, okay, get ready world, I'm gonna do it,
Uh-huh.
Well, after that, there were nothing. There were no, I was transgender, nobody was casting. I mean, I'd walk in and I couldn't even get an agent. Like people just kind of like, no. I remember I went into the top agent in San Francisco, and he said, well, not to be rude, but what are we gonna do with a person like you? And I was like, and I had a calendar, because I produced my own calendar, the first one.
Uh-huh.
Because people would always want to take a picture. I thought, okay, well, I'm going to sell a calendar.
Oh, yeah.
So long story short, I said, well, what do you see in that calendar? Because on the cover, I see a beautiful woman. Because I'd had work, and I was really pretty. But they couldn't, they didn't see a place for me. I said, just send me on the auditions. Let me use my personality. Because I knew that I would have to be a little bit of a pioneer.
Uh-huh.
I said, but just let me, they wouldn't represent me. So at that point, I was like, okay, well, what am I going to do? I heard about this pageant, this transgender beauty pageant, and it was called The World's Most Beautiful Transsexual, and they were going to do it in Las Vegas. So I applied for that, and I decided, okay, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it right. And I rented like a silver, like, what are those cars, those 300 cars? Do you know like those? Do you know what I'm talking about? Like those Chryslers that kind of look like Bentleys?
No.
Anyways, I rented I know, right?
Fancy car.
Fancy car.
Okay.
I rented it, and I put pictures of me all over the car. And I had a bunch of friends, and we all drove down there. I had a hairstylist to design. Because I'm telling you, I'm a go-getter.
Hell
And
yeah,
I
you
worked, and I had money, and I saved my money. And we went in there, and I didn't know, but they were filming a documentary. And I stood out so much that they said, would you like to be part of the 6 people or 5 people that we're going to follow? I'm like, yeah, sure. So they ended up, following me in the competition, learning my life story, going in my, but anyways, this I didn't win the competition, didn't even get in the top 10, because I fell off the stage. I mean, I was in swimsuit, and I had these sandals that would wrap around, like the strings that go all the way up to your knee, and they came off, and they wrapped around my...
Oh no.
I know, but it's
But this makes me happy, because it shows that even pretty people fall.
All
and
the
I
time.
love it. Like,
But I got back up.
fuck yeah, you did.
Yeah.
And to me, that's what I always has been felt so beautiful about my story. People want to think it's easy, and I'm like, no, it's very Legally Blonde. I've had my heart broken, I've had this, but I refuse to stop. you know?
Right.
So at this point, you know, I didn't get in the top 10, but the documentary ended up coming out on Showtime. And the documentary was the #1 documentary for Showtime that year. They debuted it on Valentine's Day. And from that, I got a lot of exposure. And so the producers from that decided to do a reality show. And they wanted to choose 3 of the people from, and I was one of them. And they chose Maria Roman and Tiara Russell. Maria was Puerto Rican, Tiara was African American, I was the white girl. And it was based on the simple life. So for a month, we traveled around in a Winnebago to small towns, and we worked crazy odd jobs. We like worked at a motorcycle shop, we had a bikini car wash. Now keep in mind, this was before Caitlyn Jenner.
Okay.
This was probably like 8 years ago, and a lot has changed in 8 years.
Right.
And I remember, I thought, once again, I'm on Showtime, we got our own show, here we are, big world, made it, right?
Mm-hmm.
No. The show, we filmed 8 episodes, and they put it on at midnight, after the porn hour. And I remember when we had the big debut in Hollywood, because I lived in San Francisco at the time, and I drove down, and we had it at a club, and Getty Images was supposed to be there. Now I know, because if anyone understands Hollywood, it's all about getting a Getty image.
Uh-huh.
You know, getting like the great photographers to shoot you, and then it gives you like validation or validity, you know, like you're a star. And they were supposed to show up, but Showtime said, and I don't care, Showtime, I'm talking. Okay, the people who were in charge at the time said no. And I said, well, why? And they said, well, we look at you as a guilty pleasure. Which basically, they didn't look at us as really someone they wanted to associate with, but they would still put us on at the porn hour. Yeah, and our show was not full of sex, was not full, you know, it was comedy.
It was fun.
It was fun. And it was, you know, it was called Wild Things, and it was really fun. It was really ahead of its time. So after that, you know, nothing happened, and I kind of was like, fudge, you know, so I just went back to performing, and
Fudge means fuck, for all of you listeners who have no idea what fudge means.
I know. So I got into a relationship, and I met, well, do you remember the swinger couple?
Uh-huh.
Oh, God. Well, long story short was, I was with that abusive boyfriend. They said, if you leave that boyfriend, we will pay for your SRS, which is, you know, sex change, which, you know, they make the Audi and Indy. And I'm like, well, I'm like, okay, I'm done, you know?
Right.
I mean, I loved him, but I knew he was just awful.
And did you have boobies yet?
I did.
Okay.
I had boobies, I had a nose job, so I was pretty.
You were, right.
You know, I wasn't like, you know, over time I got prettier and prettier, whatever, I guess. But, so at that time, I got the SRS. But you know when you love someone, you don't want to give up on them? Mm-hmm. My biggest issue has been giving up on people. You know, or quit. Honestly, you know what it is? It's not giving up on people, it's believing in myself, that I deserve better. Mm-hmm. So I stay, and I think a lot of women or people, they stay way too long because they just don't want to believe that this person's a piece of crap. Because when you love someone, you see the best in them.
Right.
So after my change and stuff, the couple who paid for it were good friends, and then the guy, he's like, Cassandra, I'm in love with you.
Of course he is.
Yeah. But we were friends, you know what I mean? Like, we enjoyed hiking, nothing sexual ever happened. And then I said, well, I can't do that. And so I went back and I found that boyfriend, and I thought, okay, now I have the full SRS, I'm in a better position, I can help him. You know, he was into drugs and whatever. On a good note, he did get a job. And he did, you know, go to work. But you know what, once trust is broken, you can't go back. Mm-hmm. You know, every time the phone would ring or something, I was like, who's that? Right. You know, and it just, and honestly, he was up to no good. He was just better at hiding it. Mm-hmm. They become better.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And you just become crazy and nuts and miserable. And I started eating and gaining weight. And so a year went by. Sorry. I should probably shut that off.
I don't.
Oh my God, okay. Okay. That's a friend. Not that type of friend. Okay, so long story short is, okay, where am I? Okay, so his name was Mike, you know, and the couple,
Uh-huh.
the guy. And I had never, honestly, because I grew up in an abusive, I didn't know what love was. I didn't know. I didn't know what love was. I didn't understand it. The only thing I knew is that every time I was around Mike, I felt like I could do anything. I felt like I loved the way he looked at me. You know, not in a sexual way. He looked at me. I remember one time I had a picture and he just stared at, I mean, just total like awe.
Uh-huh.
You know, and I was like, I don't know what love is, but wow. I mean, so long story short, as I said to Mike, I said, I'm not going to be your mistress, and I'm not going to cheat. You know, I'm not going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And keep in mind, I had just come out of a really abusive situation.
Right.
Like, I had bruises all up and down my arms, and I was not in my right frame of mind, and I was desperate. And I literally broke up with Patrizio, and the next day was with Mike.
Uh-huh.
Which anybody could tell you that that's probably not the healthiest.
Right.
I didn't want to be alone. And I remember his wife calling me, and she's like, Cassandra, how could you? And I'm like, I'm sorry. You know what I mean? And but when I look back on it, the truth is, they were done a long time ago. She was hanging on too. That doesn't make it right.
Right.
My biggest regret is that. In my whole life, my biggest regret is that she had to get hurt. You know, and I didn't understand that because at the time I was like, you know, my later 20s. I don't think I had the empathy that I do now.
Mm-hmm.
Now I like I cry about it. Like, oh my God, what must she have been going through? Can you imagine? Like your friend and everything. And I mean, but I didn't see that then. I thought, well, you know, they're not happy together, and I was so desperate to be taken care of and loved and fixed. But anyway, so me and Mike were together, and it was love. I mean, it was. I mean, we were together for 9 years. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like it was a booty call.
Right.
You know? And so, long story short, we were together for 9 years, and then all the Caitlyn stuff started happening. You know, Caitlyn Jenner.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started seeing all these people that I knew Laverne Cox before she hit it big. We were at the GLAAD Awards night. She was on the cover of Time and Cosmo. And I'm like, wow, good for her, but I want to get, I want a piece of that pie. I've lived this life, but, I was busy making meatloaf, being Mike's wife.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, I said I need to move to Hollywood. And our relationship had definitely grown apart. We were still best friends, but the chemistry, the sex, we were like roommates. And so that's what I'm saying, when you're honest and upfront, that's why we were able to separate, but still not have the drama of it all.
Right.
Like they say, can you be ex-friends with your ex? Yeah, you can if they're a good person, and it ends in a respectful way of communication. I mean, we just talk today. I mean, we talk every day. So I moved to Hollywood.
How long ago?
3 years ago.
Okay.
And at that point, I actually got a TV show called Strut that was produced by Whoopi Goldberg and another gentleman by the name of Cici Ossioton. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. If he sees this, he'll probably kill me. But that went on to win a GLAAD Award for Best Reality Program last year, which is really a big thing. GLAAD Award is like the Oscars in the gay community.
Uh-huh.
And we were on Oxygen and Bravo. And so I did that, and then I've been performing. I got hired by Diamond Dealer, and I got to travel the world and perform and everything. And, but then I got caught up in another really crappy situation once again, with a guy who worked for him who was, honestly, probably more abusive than anyone I've ever met in my life. Because I realized that abuse can happen in different ways.
Yeah.
Before, with Pat, it was more physical. With this other guy, it was mental.
Right.
And one thing I learned that the worst abuse is mental. Because it makes you question your sanity. It makes you question your worth. I mean, it has been, so, recently, he dumped me. I'm like, which is so crazy because I would not be with him, and then he came to me and said, oh, I want to be with you, and I gave him a chance, and then he dumps me.
Right.
It's just really sick and twisted. And so now I'm in the recovery phase of that, it's, yeah. And I mean, it's just a day by day thing, and I'm just learning about myself again and being on my own and realizing it's okay to be on your own.
I love that.
And yeah, and
we're gonna get you back on,
yes.
and we're gonna find out how you're doing.
Yeah.
And I'll massage you again with your perfect stupid body.
Oh, stop.
Oh, you're so pretty. And yes, like I could talk to you for hours. It sucks that I actually have another massage coming
Oh
in.
yeah, you're like, shut up.
No, I'm not. No, I'm almost like, oh, can we call and cancel the other one?
No.
But no, I love him too. So yes, we will get
Yes.
you on. Anything you want to plug? Anything?
Yeah, go, hold on. Okay, go to my Instagram page. It's Cassandra21, and you can friend me and just see my journey. I'm working on comedy and getting back another TV show.
Almost.
Yeah, but, so yeah, thank you, Joy.
No,
Check out her Kill Tony too.
Yes, she's on Kill Tony.
Yeah.
And we love her. She's gonna be huge one day, and then we're gonna be like, remember, I
Yeah.
massaged you and touched you naked.
I'm huge now.
Yeah.
Now.
Love
All
you.
right.
Bye.
Have
Bye-bye.
a good day.
Bye.
Be relaxed.